Hello and welcome to another episode of Graham Hughes' PUBCAST.
And guess what?
We're not in a pub.
We're not in a pub.
We're driving south again. We're always driving south, aren't we?
We seem to be doing an awful lot down south.
Down south.
Down south.
So we're heading down to Luxembourg today. We're going to do a couple of pubcasts in Luxembourg. But we thought while we're on our way there, we will quickly do one about this week in politics.
Oh,
Adam.
what a week.
When did I last see you? It seems like yesterday. It was
Monday.
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 And a lot's changed since then. So the election is now on, officially.
So I think it was
rumble strips.
rumble strip. Sorry about that, but I had to avoid a piece of wood on the road there. Yes, it was. So at 1 minute past midnight on Wednesday morning, Parliament was dissolved. Ready
in
for
acid.
If only.
It's a nice old building. We can't say that.
It's quite ironic that it was on Guy Fawkes night.
Oh yes, that's interesting, isn't it?
Anyway,
so what was Guy Fawkes put to death for?
Trying to blow up the Houses of Parliament.
Wow.
And some would say he was the last honest man to enter Parliament.
No, I don't believe that, because there's been a lot of good MPs, many of whom are now standing down.
I think they're up to 55 now.
That are standing down.
That are standing down, and what's worrying is
a large proportion of them
are moderate, Labour Party, moderate Tory Party, and you look at some of the people who have replaced them, who are standing for particularly the Tories.
Nutters.
Absolute nutters, you know. This
apologists for rapists. He had to stand down, didn't he? But he's actually stood down as well, secretary. But he is still wanting to campaign. He's still wanting to stand as a candidate.
But he didn't apologise for rapists. He was an apologist for a guy
who sabotaged a case.
Who actually sabotaged a rape case.
Which is something that Stephen Laxley Lennon tried to do, wasn't he? He tried to sabotage a rape case.
Yeah.
And then claim that he was defending British values or something.
You know, to put...
I didn't see him very much when the whole thing about Jimmy Savile was coming out.
No.
He didn't really talk about that very much, did he?
No, he only ever seems to turn up at trials where there's Muslims on trial.
Oh, okay, that's convenient. He wasn't there at Wolf Harris's trial?
No.
Oh, was he there at Stuart
Hall's?
Stuart Hall's?
No.
Oh, okay.
Funny that, isn't it?
Okay, so the theme of this podcast is going to be lies. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
That was by Fleetwood Mac.
Yes. So, we had Boris Johnson this week come out and stand outside number 10 and lie. He lied about everything.
Not a single truth came out of his mouth.
We're just going to show a little clip from his lies.
We've got a deal, oven ready, by which we can leave the EU in just a few weeks. It's a great deal for this country. It delivers everything that I wanted when I campaigned for Brexit. We can not only take back control of our money, and yes, we'll be able to spend hundreds of millions every week on our priorities, such as the NHS. We can take back control of our borders with an Australian-style points-based system. The biggest programme of NHS investment for a generation, lifting up funding of schools across the country. 40 new hospitals, by the way. Lifting up funding of schools across the country. Putting 20,000 more police on the streets. An infrastructure revolution we're planning in rail and road, from electric buses to new green cycle schemes. Gigabit broadband in every home. That's the choice. Come with us, a government that's putting billions into education, or go with Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, because that's the only alternative, who actually want to ban Ofsted that protects kids from bullying in the classroom. Come with us, a government that believes Britain should stand tall in the world. Or go with Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party, who sided with Putin when Russia ordered poisonings on the streets of Salisbury.
So, where do we start? First of all, 20 new hospitals. Bullshit.
Bullshit.
He didn't want an election.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. He had the front cover of the Daily Telegraph this week, in which he compared Jeremy Corbyn, who we don't like, but he compared him with
Joseph Stalin.
Stalin's persecution of the kulaks. Now, the kulaks were basically peasant farmers who had done all right, so they had a few too many cows and were therefore put to death by Stalin. It's about women and children here, and he's comparing the leader of the opposition to a mass murderer.
Yep.
Essentially, everything that Boris Johnson said outside every single statement was either untrue or misleading.
But you're talking about a man, right, who was getting berated by a father whose daughter was in hospital, right? And he said, you're here for a press opportunity. All you're doing is press opportunities, and what you've done is actually wrecked the NHS.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, there's no press here. And he said, who are these? You know, there was cameras filming this. And he said, there's no press here. I mean, in times gone by, that would have finished the career of a politician. Being caught
definitely
on camera, blatantly lying.
Yeah.
You know, but people still think he's God.
Well, this is what I was going to say about Chernobyl. The whole point of the TV show is to say that the reason why Chernobyl happened really was because everybody was lying. It was just a whole pyramid of lies, and with the disaster at the very pinnacle of this pyramid. And if those lies hadn't been, if everyone wasn't lying to each other, if the people weren't lying to themselves, the disaster probably wouldn't have happened, right? And it starts at the guy, he's talking into his tapes that the chief scientist left, talking about the disaster, and he says, what is the price? What is the cost of lies? And at the beginning he says, it's not that we won't recognise, if we lie so much, it's not that we won't recognise lies anymore. It's just that we won't recognise the truth. Well, and this is the world that we're
that's what we're in now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you'll listen to Jacob Rees-Goebbels, for example, what he said this week about the Grenfell disaster. Absolute
shocking
and
common sense.
But I was listening to it on LBC, and it didn't even register until someone pointed it out the next morning.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how
low we've gone.
How low we have gone.
Yeah.
That these fuckers can say what they want, and it's just become water off a duck's back.
It's all noise now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's noise.
You don't think it can get any worse, but it does.
Should we do a game show where we put Jacob Rees-Goebbels in a tower block, and we wait till he goes asleep, and then we set the tower block on fire, and then we have unsafe cladding on the outside that goes up like a candlestick.
Inflammable cladding.
We'll deactivate the lifts, and we'll make the only staircase out. We'll block it. And we'll leave him to use his own common sense.
His own common sense to get it.
Yeah.
Do you know
Middle of the night, no lights, just get him out there.
Do you know I've had a hell of a lot of training in my job to get in and out of or safe egress from a burning structure.
Do you want to talk about your job for a little bit, what you do?
Well,
it's not clear to the viewers.
Well, I do inspection of pressure equipment, steam raising plant, fired equipment, boilers basically.
So you're the health and safety guy?
Well, we're going to touch on this in the next video about the Swiss cheese model, but I'm not a health and safety guy, but the job I do as a mechanical engineer is ensure that the equipment is safe to operate within the health and safety executive rules and standards for that equipment, putting it in simplistic terms. So you get corrosion on some piping, or you get corrosion on a processing vessel, and you have to determine I can calculate the corrosion rate and determine the remnant life before we have to do repairs on it. So of course you get a lot of pressure equipment in oil refineries and on oil rigs and gas platforms and things like that. And I've worked offshore quite a lot. I've worked on a huge number of offshore facilities, and to go offshore you have to do what they call the BOSIET, which is Basic Offshore Survival, including escape training or something like that, where you have to escape from a submerged helicopter 6 times. They turn it upside down, and they put it. You have to go out your primary exit, and then you have to find a secondary exit, and So
you have escaped from a submerged helicopter?
Well, it's a mock-up of one, but yes, I've escaped.
And you have to swim out?
Yeah, you have to. What you have to do is you have to sort of you're taught how to pull the windows out, because they've got this beading in it, and you push the window out in a specific area, because the pressure of the water won't let the window pop out unless you get it in the right area. And then you have to escape, and then you once you're out of the helicopter, you deploy your inflatable life preserver and sort of bob around in this big swimming pool. It's quite good fun. It's quite good fun. But
I've been in the drop ship at the back of a
the free fall lifeboat.
Yeah, the free fall lifeboat. I've done that.
They're good fun. Yeah,
done that into the water.
Done that. But you get all this training to do that. And one of the things they do is they train you to escape from a smoke-filled structure.
Yeah.
So they fill, and there's certain things you do, like you're checking the walls and the doors with this side of your hand.
Yeah.
Because if it's hot, you don't want to do it with that side, because if you touch something that's hot, the weird thing is about being human is we tend to grasp it, which is a bad thing. So you do it like that, and you'll do that, so you don't actually.
Well, that's something that I learned when I was in Panama, because I had a little boat for getting to the town and back. And DC, apparently, if you get electrocuted with a DC line, you'll grasp hold of it.
Yeah.
Whereas AC blows you away, it actually pushes you off it.
I think so,
It's quite interesting.
Yeah. So
don't pick up a submerged boat battery in the water.
No.
That'd be a really bad idea.
That would be a bad idea.
Salt water.
But the thing is that these, when you do the escape from a smoke-filled structure, they deliberately, on the training, they turn the lights out, and they just fill it with smoke like you have on concerts and stuff like that. Yeah. And you just cannot see. Yeah. And don't forget, I was doing this.
You just use your common sense.
I was doing this in a controlled environment. I was doing this in a controlled environment, whereas if I got stuck or distressed or anything like that, they can open the windows and it just vents immediately, and you feel sort of human again, and normal. So can you imagine
waking up in the middle of the night?
Waking up in the middle of the night.
On the 15th floor?
On the 30th floor or the 25th floor or whatever, and you've got one exit which is full of thick, black, toxic, acrid smoke.
Yeah. And people.
And your instruction is
stay put.
Stay put.
Yeah. Because 9 times out of 10, that's the right thing to do in that kind of fire.
And we're going to talk about this in the next video, because on Piper Alpha, the reason so many of them poor souls perished was because they followed their training and instruction. The first thing to do when there's a fire is you go to the muster point, which is usually the galley, because everyone knows where the galley is, because we all,
But in the galley, that's the kitchen, and surely there's gas for the cooking.
Yeah, but everything's shut down in the galley. And it's not like it.
Tell you what, on all the cargo ships that I was on, the muster point was always near the drop ship or the escape boat.
Yeah, it is sometimes there, but on most offshore facilities, your training is go to the muster point. Don't wait for the alarm. Go to the muster point.
Yeah.
So they followed their training, and unfortunately they perished. But in the vast majority of cases, the biggest number of fires offshore or whatever, you go to the muster point, the fire crews go out, they tackle the fire, and everyone's okay because they're at the muster point.
Right.
Okay? But on Grenfell, you're not dealing with people who are trained, you're dealing with general public, some of whom probably speak English as a second or third language. It's just common sense, according to Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Common sense
Well,
to
I'd
ignore
like
what the authorities are telling you to do.
I'd like to say to Jacob Rees-Mogg, I will challenge you to do the escape from a smoke-filled structure for the offshore survival, mate.
But this is coming from the same group of people, the Conservatives, who claim that you can live off £8 a day. These are the same group of people. They just don't live in the real world. They went to private school. They went to some of the best universities because the best universities take
privilege.
people from private schools. Like Durham is 60%. 60% of the students, the British students that go to Durham University, are privately educated, and that is not fair.
No,
that is not fair, because if you go to a state comprehensive, then you have more obstacles to you getting great grades than someone who goes to bloody Eton, Harrow, rugby.
Rugby, yeah.
It's not a level playing field at all,
is it? You know, but
we're just crossing. Is this the Thames?
Yeah, this is the Queen Elizabeth II Bridge.
I was going to say, as we were crossing the bridge, we're going to be going over there in like 20 years' time and saying, "Oh, this all used to be land."
Yeah. I saw your thing on Facebook about the new EastEnders logo.
The EastEnders map, 2099. Yeah, most of the EastEnders going to be underwater by 2099. It's not part of what we're talking about though. We're talking about lies and how it's become so normalised now, and people dismiss it by going, "Oh, but all politicians lie," which drives me mad, because there are and there have been honest politicians, who have actually gone out their way to make people's lives better, whereas the Conservatives go out their way to make people's lives worse.
Dominic Grieve was interviewed on the James O'Brien show this week, and it was all about the Russia report.
Oh yes,
that Boris Johnson
is sitting on,
and 10 Downing Street claim that they are not sitting on it. It's going through due process. This is a report that was issued in March, and even the security services have said it can now be released.
All been signed off, except for by the Prime Minister.
And this is Russian interference in
elections, in our democracy.
In our democracy, in British elections, referendums, American elections, blah, blah, blah. And the government doesn't want to release it. And Boris Johnson lied again by saying, "Oh, we can't release it, it's got to go through due process."
Don't you find it terrifying, though, that there's a vetting procedure for if you're going to be regularly handling classified material? And I've got at least 2 friends who have gone through this vetting procedure for the government, and it's crazy. They ask you, everywhere you've been on holiday, they ask you all the sexual partners that you've ever had. You have to write down their names and addresses. They ask you what pornography you like to watch. Honestly, mate, it is
unbelievable.
It is so in depth, and you can understand. Yeah. You can understand why, because they don't want someone who can be compromised.
Yep.
So they want to know what drugs you've ever taken. So you've got to give them a list of all the dates and the times that you took drugs and what drugs they were. That'd be quite easy for me, because I've never taken illegal drugs. So, alcohol, they're not too bothered about. But if you've got any kind of medical issues or anything like that might be slightly embarrassing, they want to know about them.
Yeah, they do credit checks on you, and
and your friends
and your family.
Yeah, and you have to nominate people that you know to come and be interviewed and make sure that all your answers line up with whoever you nominate. It is crazy. Anyway, the 2 most powerful people in the country at the moment, Seamus Milne, who is Jeremy Corbyn's conciliere, and Dominic Cummings, who is the advisor to Boris Johnson, have either failed this vetting procedure or haven't taken it.
That's staggering, isn't it?
But so they can't actually see a lot of the secret information that's coming through legally. They can't see it.
But Dominic Grieve sat there on LBC and he said the claims by this government are bogus.
Yeah, they're lying.
He
said they are lying.
He didn't say the L word, but he said it's bogus.
Yeah.
And you know,
He said it was outrageous as well. It was just like absolutely outrageous that they were doing this. They were lying and getting away with it. The problem is here. If we teach the nation's children that lying is okay and acceptable and just a part of life, then society is very quickly going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Because our legal system has to be based on honesty. Our justice system, our police there's got to be a level of honesty there.
Yeah.
There's got to be a level of transparency where we agree not to just lie all the time about everything.
We have to take politicians quite regularly at face value. We have to say, you know, we have to trust them. And there's no trust now. There's literally no trust. Because people say, oh, well, they've not got Brexit done. They've not followed the democratic will of 17.4 million people, right? And they say...
You do know that's not a majority of the people of the UK.
Well,
65 million people in the UK.
Well, exactly. But I mean,
continue on, Mr. Brexiteer.
But people say, I'm sick of hearing that line, because all they're doing is they're blaming the politicians who are trying, and we don't agree with Brexit, but they are trying to deliver the Brexit that was sold to them, when all these politicians, including the Prime Minister, said, we will get a good deal. We will not leave without a deal. We will do this. So the politicians are trying to deliver the mandate that they were supposedly given in a fraudulent referendum, but they're trying to deliver it. And people are now saying, oh, well, I don't trust any of them because they've not delivered Brexit. Well, they're trying to deliver whose Brexit? Who? You know,
who is Brexit? Who's on first?
You know, is it David Davis's Brexit? Is it Nigel Farage's Brexit that they're trying to deliver?
Well, Nigel Farage has got to be in his bonnet that the Brexit that Boris Johnson has negotiated, which is exactly the same as the Brexit that Theresa May negotiated. I mean, the EU haven't conceded anything at all. The British have conceded.
Yep.
The EU hasn't. But the version that Boris Johnson's cooked up, according to Nigel Farage, isn't Brexity enough.
But that's the weird thing, isn't it? I mean, you've got old Frog Eyes shouting and ranting from the sideline again.
Yeah. The foghorn of ignorance.
Oh, you know,
Farage.
The beery, what was it James O'Brien called him? The beery burp of flatulence made flesh or something, which is a terrific description. But all he does is shout and rant, and he's now saying that Boris Johnson and Michael Gove aren't Brexity enough, despite them leading the side that won through cheating, and he's not Brexity enough. How fucking dumb is this now?
But then we've got a real problem when the presenter of Question Time
Fiona
actually
Bruce
lies on Question Time that Vote Leave was cleared of the charges brought against it. Vote Leave was not cleared. It was actually found guilty of electoral fraud by the Electoral Commission. It was fined. It then put up an appeal against the fine, and then they dropped the appeal because they wouldn't win.
They knew they wouldn't win.
But also because people don't care. And it's not the people watching these videos, because I think the people watching these videos do care about the United Kingdom and do care about our future and do care about the truth and about people and I am sick and tired, Adam, I am sick and tired of people telling me that my facts, they're not my personal facts, but the facts, right, are my personal experience of travelling to every country in the world and also getting an A in A-level politics and studying politics at university. So my experience and the facts I have are worth less than their opinion that they are parroting from the Daily Mail. The
Daily Mail or the Sun. You know, the Sun that's owned by one of the wealthiest men in the world.
Yeah, or the Telegraph, which is owned by two of the wealthiest brothers in the world.
Not for long.
Yeah, they're selling it.
They're selling it.
Yeah, hopefully not to, what's his name, Bannon.
Oh, Steve Bannon. A man who said you should wear the badge of racism with pride.
Yes.
boycott.
So here we have a situation in which lying has become normalised. And so why is it that the same people who are obsessed with making Britain great again in their imagination want to follow liars, want Britain to be seen for all the world as a nation that is so duplicitous that it has these people in charge,
Yeah,
so stupid that it thinks that's a good thing?
It's like, could you imagine if your friend and mine, Jeremy Corbyn, had ended up saying something like Jacob Rees-Goebbels did?
Yeah.
The right-wing press would be destroying him.
So I just had to take a break there because I'm actually holding the camera on the dashboard and I had pins and needles in my hand. So I had to take a quick break. So we were just talking about us reading the comments and just trying to keep things as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult. Lying is difficult in the way that it's hard to keep track of all your lies, and you see this with compulsive liars. You know, it's very easy to tie them in knots.
But they've literally, Boris Johnson and the people who think he's great, they literally do not care anymore. They literally don't care.
I know he lies, but he's my liar.
Yeah,
Because
he's on our team.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, so you've got rid of your moral compass.
Yeah.
I think it was Cecil Parkinson it ended his political career when he got his daughter's nanny or one of his servants pregnant. Right? He was a man destined to become the leader of the Tory party, and his career was in tatters because he started rooting around. But
Boris
now
Johnson cheats on his mistresses.
Boris Johnson has cheated on 2 wives, several mistresses.
We don't know how many children he's got.
And is now under investigation for misappropriation of
public funds
while he was in the mayor's office in London.
Man who lied to the Queen.
A man who lied to the Queen. Or, well, did he lie to the Queen, or did he authorised Jacob Rees-Mogg to lie to the Queen, I think, didn't he? So it's, you know, everything that the Conservative Party used to be has gone.
Well, isn't this what Ken Clarke said this week? He said, you know, the Conservative Party's been replaced by a nationalistic, ultra-right-wing bunch of lunatics.
Yeah.
And we're seeing all these MPs on both sides. I mean, Labour's not clean on this either. I was doing an interview last night, and it was mentioned the fact that first past the post, we're talking about that in terms of the election. And I was asked, this is by a foreign news agency, and they said to me, why have you still got the system? I said, well, it suits Labour and the Conservatives.
Yeah.
It doesn't suit the small parties, and because they'll never get into power, there's nothing much they can do about it. And one of the things that Liberal Democrats did, foolishly in hindsight, was not just teaming up with the Tories, but the reason why they teamed up with the Tories is because they were promised by David Cameron that they could bring in AV. But instead of just bringing it in as a government bit of legislation, they put it to the people. Why would you? I mean, sorry, but unless you've got a degree in politics, how are you? Or you've got a team of civil servants telling you why it should be like this. Why are they asking us?
Yeah, but that's the other thing as well about civil servants. Are you aware that this week the civil servants who are normally there to serve the government, that's both.
I thought they were just servants who were very civil.
Yeah, well, some
just
of them
made tea and stuff.
Some of them might be, you know.
Okay,
but the thing is, right, is that civil servants are there to serve the government and the opposition, right? And they have to they have to do all the costings for a politician or a political party that says, we want to give free bags of Smith's Salt and Shake to every household, 1 bag a day, and they have to cost it. And Boris Johnson has instructed them to not help Labour cost their policies.
What? Wow. Wow.
So, you know,
Wow.
there's not a single honest action that man,
Boris Johnson.
has done.
But I'm going to bring this back to Corbyn, because Corbyn is dishonest as well.
Yeah.
He'll say, I have been very clear. You go out and talk to voters and find out if they think that Labour's policy on Brexit has been clear. Just to stress this point enough, a week before the referendum, 50% of Labour voters polled didn't know if Labour was for or against Brexit. That is not being clear.
It's ridiculous.
That's like a muddy lake of clearness. It's not clear at all. You can't see your feet in the lake when you're standing in it.
And the fact that he's
I've been very clear.
said this, that, and the other about having a people's vote, and he's going to go to the EU, get a deal,
A better deal than
a
Boris
better deal
Johnson.
than Boris Johnson's.
Better deal than Theresa May's.
Come back, put that deal and staying in the EU on another ballot,
Yep.
and say we're going to campaign against his own deal. It's
Well,
not.
no, he hasn't said which way he'll campaign.
No, I think he has.
He's going to campaign against his own deal.
Yes,
Wow. Well,
I think so. But
So,
please correct me.
Owen Smith, who was famously kicked out of the shadow cabinet for having the audacity to say that we should have a people's vote, which is now Labour Party policy, has left the party. Tom Watson, the deputy leader, Tom Watson, who's come and spoken at our rallies, our Remain rallies, spoken at our events,
is leaving.
and Jeremy Corbyn is looking more and more isolated. But it's not him, and it's not Boris Johnson. It's Seamus Milne and it's Dominic Cummings, two men who both have very dodgy links. And this is something that came out this week. Dominic Cummings, between 94 and 97, do you know where he was?
Russia.
Do you know what
Why?
he was doing?
Probably helping Vladimir Putin.
We don't know. He said he was helping an airline get off the ground. By the way, Dominic Cummings speaks fluent Russian. Just putting it out there to you, for anyone who doesn't like the sound of foreign languages on a train, Nigel. He speaks fluent Russian. And this guy has the ear of a very, very compromised Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who looks like he's going to walk this election because the only opposition is Jeremy Corbyn, the most unpopular politician since
the world.
Pubic lice stood for office.
It is the most. I mean, let's just say that again. He is the most unpopular politician in the world. He's got a lower approval rating than Donald Trump.
Than Donald Trump, yeah. Mate, and this is even after all the stuff that... We haven't really talked much about Donald Trump in our podcasts, have we?
No, because
we've been talking a lot about UK politics, which is understandable, but I mean, America, it's like there's a part of me that just wants to get the popcorn out, but then there's another part of me thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this. Two of the most firmly established democracies on the planet, the UK and the US, are being eaten away from the inside by bad actors, double agents, and people who are obviously working for the Russians.
Yeah.
And when we have a leader of our country who is, he mentioned about Corbyn backing up the Russians and the Salisbury poisoning. Excuse me? Mr. Johnson, if you don't want to look like you're backing up the Russians, do you want to release that report into Russian meddling in our affairs?
Do you want to tell us how many donors and how much money has come into the Conservative Party
Yeah.
from Russia?
And how about you don't resign from the Foreign Office on the day that a British citizen is killed by Russian poison that was put there by Russian agents trying to kill a former Russian agent and his daughter? Hey, how about you don't resign on that day? Hey? Well, because that would make it look a little bit like you went on the side of the Russians. But from the looks of things, Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn and their advisors, their chief advisors, are all working for the Russians. And the question I've got to ask anyone watching this who doesn't believe me, if they weren't working for the Russians, what would they do differently?
You tell us.
Well, nothing. They'll want Brexit, which they both do.
Yeah.
They'll both want to destroy the UK economy. They want to piss off all of our NATO neighbours. Don't forget, only 29 members of NATO, 22 of them are in the EU.
Yeah.
All right, Brexit is destroying our position on the world stage. We're losing our seats in the EU Parliament. But worse than that, well, arguably even worse than that, I should say, because that's pretty bad, turning your back on 50% of your trade, is the fact that if Scotland leaves, which is looking very, very likely, if we leave the EU, that's Scotland gone.
Definitely.
They are definitely going to leave. Therefore, the Union flag's not going to be our flag anymore. We're not going to be British anymore because that's not going to be our nationality. We will not be able to call ourselves the United Kingdom because we won't be united and a kingdom. Well, we'll still be a kingdom, but we won't be the United Kingdom of Scotland and England, which is what the United Kingdom is kind of short for.
The full name of the country is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we will not be Great Britain anymore because we'll have lost a massive part of it.
Yeah, about a third of it. So, I mean, yeah, everything that these guys have done, these bastards who are in charge, has been not bad for the Russians, let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, Putin. But then again, too, I remember reading the Daily Mail and reading the comments.
You've read the Daily Mail?
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
But I've read it online. And you've got people like, what's the name of the guy who writes an editorial?
Little John.
That's him.
Little Cock.
And hang on, I'm just putting my glasses on. So the guy who does the editorials for the Daily Mail, I remember reading some of the comments and people were actually supposedly British people putting complimentary remarks about Putin on them.
Yeah.
A few years ago. And it's like, you know...
Oh, mate, we are a nation of beta males. We are a nation of beta males. You know, anyone who says to you, I like a strong leader, you're like, you sad little bastard.
Yeah.
And these people who have not obviously got anything they're proud of in their lives, which depresses the shit out of me. I don't have kids, right? But if I did, right, I would assume that I'd be proud of them.
Yeah.
But there are people out there who have got kids who are great. They're not proud of that. They're proud of the fact that they happen to have been born somewhere, or because they're pleased that they like it when Boris Johnson lies, or when a strong man comes along and takes charge. That's what makes them happy.
Yeah.
It's like,
and people write. I think James O'Brien said this, and he had a guy on, and he said, "I know that Donald Trump is lying to me, but I like it because it winds up people like you."
Yeah.
What kind of fucked mentality is that?
There was someone on the radio this week who said in not so many words, a Republican in America will shit in their own mouth just so a Democrat will have to smell their breath.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
You've got people in industrial northern towns forgotten and left to rot by Westminster now saying that, or we've been made to believe that it's all the EU's fault that of their predicament. And
they've conveniently forgotten that it was the sell-off of our industries by Conservative governments.
Yeah. But also, it's industries change.
Industry does change.
We need to adapt, and we need to have government support in order to adapt and make those changes. The government support for industry in space like China is self-evident, but they don't have the freedoms that go along with it, that go along with being British.
And
but the idea in the UK that industry is just left to sink or swim of its own devices. But then, you know, the Americans will step in to save the automobile industry. The UK will step in to save the banks.
Yeah.
In fact, when Thatcher was in charge, they stopped the government from stepping in to save any private company in the United Kingdom. So they privatised stuff and then said, sink or swim.
Yeah.
But there was one industry that the Conservatives still underwrite. Do you know what industry that might be?
Well, it's got to be the banks, hasn't it?
No?
Go on, wait for it.
The arms industry. I mean manufacturing.
Oh, yeah.
Not finance, manufacturing. The only manufacturing industry in the United Kingdom that is underwritten still by the government. So essentially, if the king of Jordan decides that he wants 10 tanks and Britain makes those tanks and sends them over and he doesn't pay for them, the British taxpayer picks up the price.
Really?
Picks up the cost, yeah.
So this is why we're still selling...
Oh yeah, Brexit's going to be great for arms manufacturers. Because one of the things that the pesky EU does is it has a deal, free trade deals, with nearly all the countries in Africa, and they're called anything but arms.
Right, okay. I know about this,
Yeah, so free trade for anything but arms. And when these liars, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, talk about how the EU makes it unfair for African producers, actually the EU has these trade deals in place.
Yeah. So
just not if they want to buy weapons.
Yeah.
This is a huge industry, with the second biggest weapon manufacturer in the world is the United Kingdom, because it's popped up by the government.
I had no idea that we were that big in terms of arms. I thought we'd be in the top 5, but I thought it'd be Russia, China, the United States.
Well, this is the big thing when Princess Diana made this huge deal about the landmines back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
A lot of those landmines that were being planted in places like East Timor, where a lot of it's still mined, were made in Britain. And these are mines that kids now, today in East Timor, are still walking through a field and stepping on a mine, blowing their legs off. Yeah. And they were manufactured in...
Because mines are really, really insidious. They're not actually designed to kill, are they? They're designed to maim.
Yeah.
So you become a burden upon your country.
But I mean, Laos is littered with them.
Oh yeah,
Laos in Southeast Asia. It's
because the Americans were dropping mines all over Laos in the Vietnam War.
Yeah, although they claim not to. But then again, lies. This is where we are now. It's like we have access to more facts than ever before because of the internet. But instead of fact-checking everything, we are being lied to at a rate that has got to a point, and this is Trumpian. This is just a word that's come into the lexicon, isn't it? Trumpian. The fact that once you make it enough lies, we can't recognise the truth anymore. Yeah. Because everything becomes a lie. And so it doesn't matter that, it suddenly equalises everything. So you have people saying, oh, but if they can get the emergency bill through to stop no deal, why can't they vote through the bill for to make us leave the EU, for the Brexit bill? It's like, well, there's a slight difference between we're not going to leave till we get a deal and a bill to say this is the deal, let's vote on it. Now, one of the other lies that Boris Johnson said in the clip was that he didn't want this election. He tried 3 times to get this election.
Yeah.
How could he? And then he said he had to do it because the progress of his Brexit bill wasn't getting through Parliament. Hang on, Boris. You won the second reading by 19 votes, I think it was, which was the number of Labour rebels who voted for your shitty deal. Because yay, Labour.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of workers' rights and freedom of movement.
Environmental protections.
And environmental protections. Why do we want them, Labour?
Who the fuck needs them?
But this is it. Labour are a very self-serving clique. They won't bring in proportional representation. They won't bring in even an AV vote system.
So Boris Johnson, we think, has told a few porkies. Well, we don't think, we know. So
He's a liar.
Bozo
Stone
Johnson.
cold liar.
So he turned around and said, "We're going to get 20,000
he didn't
police
turn around.
officers."
He just said it.
Well,
Because if he turned around, he'd have his back to the camera.
well, that'd be a better view, wouldn't it?
Yeah, true.
So he said
20,000.
20,000 is going to increase the budget to get 20,000 Rozzers back into the police force.
How many of the Tories cut?
21,000.
Oh,
So,
that's nice. The Lord provides and the Chinese take away.
yeah. So he's not telling the entire truth about that. The sun's come out
do you
here,
think
so
not?
I'm going to put my glasses on again.
Thinks he's in the Matrix, this one.
I've never seen that.
Have you not seen the Matrix? That's right up your street.
The cake makes me. Anyway.
So,
he's lied about that. He's lied about the hospitals.
lie. Didn't
lie.
want an election.
Lie.
Hospitals,
Lie.
police.
Lie.
And also he said about Jeremy Corbyn being an apologist for the Russians or something, which is like, hello? Have you not been paying attention to the life of Boris Johnson over the last few years? He's done everything in his power to help the help particularly Putin out. Mm-hmm. Just want to talk about the Salisbury poisoning.
Yeah, so...
Because at the time, people were saying online, oh, I think this was an inside job. I think this was Theresa May, because she wants to do better in the local elections that were like 2 months away.
Are these the same people who think 9/11 was
an inside job?
An inside
probably.
job.
Yeah, the simplest explanation cannot be the way it happened, because I've grown up with Hollywood movies where there's a twist. So there must be a twist. And it's like, you look at the mad conspiracies that have actually happened, they're in plain sight.
Yeah.
They're totally in plain sight. Like Hillsborough, there was a report that came out after Hillsborough basically saying exactly what's come out in the court cases since.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was just buried by the government. They just weren't interested in pursuing it or making amends to the situation or finding, Duckenfield guilty of misconduct, finding, the South Yorkshire Police?
South Yorkshire Police, yeah.
South Yorkshire Police guilty. I mean, so many things going into this, but the Skripal poisonings happened on the eve of the Russian presidential elections, and this was Putin sending a clear message to his enemies that we will find you and we will kill you. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. And just imagine how much power that man has to be able to attempt to murder a double agent and his daughter on foreign soil and completely get away with it. And not only get away with it, have the leader of the opposition party, the main opposition party, say we should give the Russians the benefit of the doubt and we should give them the poison to make sure that it was from them. So whereas Boris Johnson was lying, was he lying about Corbyn or was he was distancing himself from his own situation?
Well, there's probably
vis-a-vis Russia.
Probably a bit of both, isn't it? Really. But I mean, what kind of nutter thinks? Okay, so Novichok, which was a poison developed by the Soviet Union, right? And they're turning around and saying, you know what, Theresa May has gone and organised a delivery of that to kill a former Russian spy and his daughter.
On the eve of the Russian presidential election.
It's not fucking rocket science,
Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. It was the Russians. But sure, have all your conspiracy theories and think that, that there's someone out there who's secretly controlling the world, but it's not Putin. It's not the guy who's obviously secretly controlling the world, because he makes no secret about it.
Yeah.
The evidence that was gathered into the 2016 presidential election in America, the Mueller inquiry, I mean, for God's sake, that led to dozens of arrests. People are in jail. They have meetings. The president's son met in Trump Tower with Russian agents, for Christ's sake. And we've got a report into Russian meddling in British politics, which is being sat on by Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings.
Yeah.
Dominic Cummings, who put out a statement this week saying, "Oh, it takes a long time to go through all this. We've got to read it through." It's like, no, it's been read through
and approved.
Been approved. Just sign it. No, it's going to have to be after the election.
Because I mean, it's just the duplicity of these people, you know, and they just.
Well, they've won. They've won. They have moved the middle of the political debate. They've flipped it. We're living in the upside down now. Everything's a lie.
Yeah.
And you've got these Lexiteers who are saying once we're all poor, nobody will be poor. You've got all these people on the right who want Brexit. So like once everybody's a liar, no one will be a liar. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No. But
and so we have found ourselves in a very, very
dangerous and depressing situation. It is depressing.
We have 10 years to save the planet. That's it. Or we're fucked. We are so fucked. I can't even begin to explain how fucked we're going to be. Most of the people in the world live in cities, and a lot of those cities are very, very susceptible to sea level rising. And this isn't a case of being able to build a wall around an entire country like the United Kingdom to stop this water coming in. We're going to lose a big chunk of London. We're going to lose all of Hull. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. But we're going to see a very different globe. And it's like people think in their heads, oh, it's all right, we'll just go and live on hills. Hills are not great for farming, guys. Yeah. Lowlands, the biggest producer of food in the world is the Netherlands. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The biggest single producer of food in the world?
I think so, yeah. It's the Netherlands, because it's all
flat,
fertile soil. It's really hard to get a combine harvester up a hill.
This is why South Korea, why they mainly have chicken in their dishes, isn't it? Because it's so mountainous. They've not got much. They haven't got a large amount of land that they can devote to farming because it's so mountainous.
Yeah.
They have to. What they have to do, and that's why beef is a real luxury over there. Because I'm not a farmer, but let's say you're a cattle farmer, and you have what you do is you have some cows, and you might on an acre of land you might have 4 cows. But on an acre of land, you might be able to have 20 pigs or 1,000 chickens, you know, and that's why these, like countries like South Korea, they import milk solids from New Zealand, and you know, the New Zealand dairy industry it's a huge industry, sending milk solids to Japan and South Korea because they haven't got the land for cattle.
And so here we are. We've got 10 years to save the planet, and the people in charge of our biggest and most powerful countries are liars and thieves and lunatics. And Lindsey Graham's defence of Trump this week was absolutely staggering, which was that concerning his conversation with the Ukrainian president, asking him specifically a quid pro quo, I will, if you sort me out by getting me some dirt on Joe Biden, I will sell you all his weapons and I will release this 400 fucking billion, is it? Some ridiculous amount, 400 million of military aid that is earmarked for Ukraine. I will release that if you get me some dirt. And Lindsey Graham's defence of Trump is that he was too stupid to know what was really going on there. This is where we are now.
This is the president of the most powerful nation on earth. Is too stupid.
and I guess this is it now, because the same people who are so upset about political correctness, or what they call the woke culture now, which is just not being a dick. It's just like not being horrible to people. That's what political correctness is. It's being nice. It's polite.
It's
not
like
being horrible to minorities.
It's allowing same-sex couples to enjoy love and relationships in the same way that opposite-sex couples do.
Yeah.
Why is that so offensive to some people?
Well, they don't want that. They want to be able to say what they want. They want to be able to do, insult people if they want to. But then if you insult them and call them gammonites or you call them thick, they get all upset.
Yeah.
But this is the mad thing. A lot of them are thick.
Yeah.
And, someone said about... James O'Brien put a tweet up this morning saying that a lot of people were duped into Brexit. Obviously you get that thing coming back, you calling all Brexit voters thick. And, there's a lot of Brexit voters out there who are really, really intelligent. And so I had to respond to this guy just saying, where are they hiding?
Yeah.
Seriously? Send them our way. I would love to speak to someone who's a Brexiteer and is more intelligent than me or Adam. Because I not that we're like super intelligent or anything, but we've got a bit of nous about us.
Yeah.
What Jacob Rees-Mogg might call common sense.
Common sense, yeah.
Because in a fire, I would actually do what I was told by the emergency services.
Yeah, because
I
on
wouldn't
the
just
whole...
try and save myself like a twat, because you're in a situation that you're not used to, and like they say, 9 times out of 10 in that situation, you are best staying where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's someone that you know who you think is really intelligent and wants Brexit and knows what they're talking about to a level that you think that they could take me or Adam on in this matter, please get in touch. Leave a comment and get them to get in touch with us, because we would love to do a podcast where it's not just
us,
Ramonas in their bubble having a love-in.
Yeah.
And actually have someone who is on the other side, who has a good, cogent argument why sacking off half of our trade, or effectively trying to sack off half our trade, telling our closest neighbours and allies to fuck off, and we will be much better off trading with poor people on the other side of the planet who don't want to buy things off us and couldn't even if they wanted to. We'd love to hear from you. So that's our challenge.
Yeah, and in fact, get them to follow me on Twitter at 4th of 373.
Yeah, and I'm at Every Country. Please subscribe to these videos. Also, if you enjoy them, I am on Patreon. And so if you want to patronise me, it is patreon.com/That Ginger Scouser.
That Ginger Scouser.
That Ginger Scouser.
All right. So we're just coming into Dover now, and we'll see you on the ferry.